Audio's on, go.
Sweet. Welcome to the State of the Snowpack, February 2021. We are live streaming our first time. Thanks to our newest team member, Shane. He is crushing it here. I'm at Ryan Flett's house. I hope I said his name right. And I've got Jason Wishlow here, who's going to be our awesome presenter this evening. I am stoked to have all of you tuning in. This project is just gaining more and more momentum and keeping people safe and informed in our Kootenay backcountry. And I'm stoked that there are people watching on the coast, that there are people watching in the Rockies, and I can't wait to bring it to your town. So if you're passionate about this project and you are enjoying the information you're getting, please share it as much as you can, because we want to spread this thing like wildfire in the good way. And before we start off tonight, I would like to just take a huge minute to thank our entire team, because I could not do this without all of the people sitting in this room. I could not do this without Kath helping me behind the scenes. I could not do this without Judson Wright and Kootenay Backcountry Guides. I could not do this without Whitewater. So I would like to thank everybody involved for making this project happen, because it's thanks to a lot of hard volunteer hours that this is coming to you live right now. And without further ado, I'd also like to share that we have a Weston giveaway. Weston gave us some awesome swag, and I did one of those random generators on Instagram and Facebook. And for this lovely hat and stickers to go with, that's going to go to @TheRealSpencerScott on Instagram, so I will reach out to you. And then this lovely Weston t-shirt, this guy here, is gonna go to Blake Garrett off of our Facebook group. And then these awesome gloves are gonna go to Brittany Burke, also on our Facebook group. And there'll be stickers with all of that, and so I'll reach out to the three of you and get you guys this awesome Weston swag. So thanks, Weston, for reaching out and giving us some stuff to share. And without further ado, let's just get right into this thing. We've got lead Avalanche forecaster for Whitewater Ski Resort here. He got a standing ovation last time because he absolutely rocks. Jason Wishlow, please come to the stage. You! Or I'll just... Here you go, bud.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. I'm just button myself up. Okay, we're looking good. Okay, awesome. Well, hello everybody. It's an honor to be presenting here tonight. And when Morgan asked me to do this last year, I was really super stoked. It's a different project. I think that it's really beneficial to the local community to help people safe, and I'm just very like I say, I'm stoked to be part of it. Sometimes you get asked to do things like this, and I'll be honest, to find myself standing here is a little bit of a surprise, to me. Try to be a humble person, I suppose, but I like to, I've looked up to so many people in the industry and in this community for so long, and to find myself in this position now seems quite remarkable. And sometimes, it doesn't seem all that real, but so I hope that I can inspire some other people. I can give people good information to help keep them safe, and as well, let you guys know in the video land here that I'm, I continue to learn all the time as well from people who are less experienced than me, people who are more experienced than me, and that's the part of having a really amazing community. And I think that's what we have. Especially in Nelson and in the Kootenays, but I think in BC in general, I think that there's a lot of people out there that are super keen on advancing, as much knowledge as they can, and training and keeping people super safe. And so I'm gonna do my best to give a great presentation for you here tonight. But away we go. So, yeah. Okay. Okay, awesome. Is that better? Okay, cool. So I just want to give out some shout outs and a lot of thanks. First of all, to Morgan, who conceptualized this whole idea, put it together, and it's been awesome. It's been awesome to know you and work with you, and I think you're doing a really, really wonderful thing for the community. For Kootenay Backcountry Guides, Judson and his whole team, I think that he's done an amazing job posting numerous videos. He's done a couple of these talks already, and he's he's in the mountains all the time. And he's providing wonderful information. So thanks, Kootenay Backcountry Guides. Thanks, Judson, and keep up the great work. The Whitewater forecasting team. 2 people on my shift I work with, Greg Barnhouse and Dave Michael, as well as Wendy Lewis and Garrett Fishlock. And they are, Greg and Dave have been able to bounce a lot of ideas off of them. And just our whole team, I think, works really well together. And I've learned a lot from those guys. And I think we put together a pretty nice program up there at Whitewater. Whitewater Ski Resort, it's my home. I've been there for 20 years, and it's where I've learned to hone my craft. It's been a massive part of my life. It's a big part of my family's life, and those guys have always been amazing for me. And the entire community, it's like I said earlier here, that we have an amazing community in the Kootenays, and it's I just want to say thanks. There's so many people that have influenced me and helped me along the way, and have helped the whole science community, the Avalanche forecasting community. So thanks everybody out there. Too many to name, obviously. So when we start today, I did this presentation last year. And I like to start with some definitions, because I realize that we're going through a very different phase in our mountain travel careers. Some people are just getting into it. A lot of people are just getting into it this year, and there's other people that are moved farther along and have gained a lot more knowledge. But just so we're all on the same page, I just want to make sure that everybody's familiar with some of the things that I'm going to be talking about tonight. So first one is the surface hoar. And surface hoar is the feathery crystals grow on top of the snow surface. Surface hoar, it can be quite small. We measure it in millimeters. Can be 1 millimeter to a centimeter or more big. Tends to stand uniformly, forms on cold, clear nights with the absence of wind. It has to do with radiation entering the snowpack. It's a little more technical, but the problem with surface hoar is that it's a very, very weak layer once it's buried by other snow on top of it, and fails altogether and creates, can be a real significant avalanche problem. Rain crusts. Rain crusts are, like when we get rain events, we don't call those crusts that are formed by rain soaking the snow rain crusts. It's a technical thing. A rain crust is freezing rain, and we've been seeing a lot of freezing rain. I'll show you a slide later on. We've had numerous freezing rain events this year. Last year, it seems to be far more prevalent than it ever has been before, but they're super thin and breakable. Lots of times we refer to them as eggshell. They can be a little bit thicker, like kind of half a centimeter thick, but generally pretty breakable, and can do different things in the snowpack, create a bed surface, or create a weakness if there's faceting above or below it, or sometimes surface hoar forms right on top of a rain crust. And then there's melt freeze crusts. Melt freeze crusts form when it rains or the snow melts the surface of the snow, it percolates down. Melt freeze crusts can tend to be a lot thicker than freezing rain crusts, and they are they can be a real problem. Generally, lower down in the snowpack, and we get significant issues with melt freeze crusts and basal layers. We get what's called faceting, the edging of crystals that can get quite large and create a real significant weakness around melt freeze crusts, and those are something I'll be talking about as well. So I'm going to go through some quick pictures here. There's surface hoar. You can see the person's finger. You can see they're quite large. They're really quite beautiful, but they're really quite terrifying as well once they get a slab on top of them.
Here you drink it.
Wet my throat. This is a Kilkenny. Yeah. It's delicious. There's a freezing rain crust. So freezing rain crust. This picture is one of the better ones I could find. Pretty difficult, but you can see that you can actually see through it. When you're skiing, I'm sure many of us have felt a freezing rain crust. You ski through, your goggles are covered in it. You know, it's freezing right away. It's freezing on your jacket. It pretty much sucks and forms this crust that's like translucent. It's breakable, but it does some different things in the snowpack. And then there's a melt freeze crust, where this is on the base of the snowpack, but you can see it's like successive melting rain events, warming and then freezing, and it creates this kind of gnarly looking crust that can occur in various places in the snowpack, but it also, like I say, the problems a lot of times can be early season melt freeze crusts. Something else I wanted to talk to people about are types of slabs. Hopefully people are familiar with Avalanche Canada. Looking at the forecast, we'll be talking about that in a little bit as well. But there's more types of slabs than this. These are the primary ones that I want to focus on today, simply because they're the ones in the snowpack that are showing up at this time of year. So we have a storm slab, a wind slab, and persistent and deep persistent slabs. So as you're moving through a forecast, I want you guys to be able to look at that and then understand what the differences are there and what you need to look for. So first of all, a storm slab. This is a pretty awesome picture. This is right up above our shop at Whitewater. And this was a storm slab. So slab, in general, it's a stiff layer of snow, okay, that forms due to wind, to temperature, and to precipitation. So storm slab, on the surface, snow falls with wind, with temperature. Fist to pencil resistance we use in the avalanche world. It's a very technical way of determining how stiff the snow is. We can put our fist into it, we can put 4 fingers into it, we can put 1 finger into it, we can put a pencil into it, or we can put a knife into it. And it can go kind of plus or minus. It has a bit of a variance there. But so a storm slab is generally fist to pencil resistant, so they can be quite stiff. They can persist for hours or days, but they tend to settle out quite quickly. And then they're located just in or below the storm snow, and they can propagate, which means it spreads out over wide distances. Sorry, if you trigger a storm slab, there's been storm slabs that can propagate for kilometers. And Morgan was just telling me a story about a place that she works at, Meadow Creek, where that was the case. So they can be quite volatile, and they can be quite deep as well. I mean, you can get storm slabs that are 1 meter deep. Wind slabs, definitely, they form quite quickly. They're often stiffer than a storm slab is. So wind slabs are formed really primarily by wind, hence the name wind slab. They can persist for hours or days. Located in the upper snowpack because wind's transporting snow, it's loading into slopes, creating this stiff layer. But the difference with a wind slab is that they won't propagate for generally significant, over significant areas. Lots of times it's over a terrain feature where the wind has transported that snow. There are circumstances where a wind slab will propagate or crack and run a slab wider. And here's a case, if you look at this slide, we had a wind event a couple weeks ago in Weimer Bowl. The wind slab on the looker's left there it's a natural that ran, and it ran size 1.5 or size 2. On the left, looker's right, in the shade there, hard to see, but that was a skier triggered wind slab. And then that one actually propagated a lot farther than we generally see wind slabs trigger. So they form really quickly, they're stiff, and you can see them. I was talking to Greg Barnhouse about them the other day, and he's like, the one thing is you can see them, but at the same time they're unpredictable. You don't know if you can trigger it or not. And sometimes you can, but they spook me a little bit more. They're a little bit more unpredictable, to say the least. Whereas a storm slab, when it's reactive, you know when you hit a terrain feature that you're going to be able to trigger it. And then persistent slab and deep persistent slab. So they can be really quite firm. And when we're talking persistent or deep persistent, all we're talking about is a weakness, a surface hoar weakness, melt freeze crust with facets, like a rain crust, some sort of a weakness, but it's deeper in the snowpack that has slab built on top of it. So, a persistent slab can be an old weakness that's 1 meter down in the snowpack, that's 70 centimeters down in a snowpack. Deep persistent slab, generally below 1 meter, 1.50 meters, 2 meters down in a snowpack, maybe the entire depth of the snowpack, which could be 3-4 meters, depending where you are. These slabs can persist for, weeks or months. They can be deep in the snowpack and remain a concern for a significant period of time unless something happens to change that. So all we're talking about there is just different slab properties, different layers of the snowpack, and how long they'll last and what kind of propagation propensity they have. So the ability for them to fracture over long distances. Persistent slab, deep persistent slabs tend to propagate wide distances as well. Sorry, I took the mic away from my mouth. So what are our current conditions and slab problems now? And we're going to get into what we're looking at with our current snowpack. Trackable layers versus significant layers. So I have a slide here. This picture is we call it our significant or trackable layer sheet at Whitewater. I think I counted up the other day, it's like 26 layers that we've tracked so far this season. 26 layers as of the 23rd of February is a lot of layers. In general, I've found over the last 8 to 10 years that we're seeing more and more layers form on the surface, and we date these layers. We date layers once they're buried by a new snowfall. So, but just with really significant weather changes, we get so many more extremes now. We'll get long periods of cold. We'll get significant wind events. We'll get dry periods, and then we'll get intense snowfalls. We'll get rising temperatures, rain events which form melt freeze crusts, the dry periods which form surface hoars, and then the freezing rain events. And then so we're getting times now where we'll talk about a current surface hoar layer that's got 3 surface hoar layers below it on a freezing rain crust that occurred in 10 centimeters, which became quite a problem for us at Whitewater, for us in the Kootenays, and for a lot of other regions in the area. So something to pay attention to there. Significant layers now. I just mentioned the January 25th surface hoar. That became a major player, and it's still on our radar. It's still on the radar of a number of different operations. And I'll talk about that layer specifically in a little bit. But you know, like, since we're gaining a whole lot of confidence in it that it's kind of done its thing, and that it was very significant for a while. And so right now we're seeing generally pretty well consolidated snowpack with not a lot of weakness going on through it, and I'll explain how that all came to be. So how did we get where we are now? There's a few layers. I'm going to go back one slide here. I've highlighted in pink. We had December 8th and December 8th melt freeze crust slash. It was a melt freeze. It was a bizarre event. There was freezing rain, and then there was surface hoar that formed on it. And then just above it, there was another significant surface hoar that formed on top of that. So you had December 1st to 7th, clear and cold, and then it formed this. It formed a surface hoar there, and that on top of the December 8th, so there was only about 10 centimeters between that, and it produced, and the December 8th we had this rain crust, surface hoar, melt freeze crust. It was a kind of a bizarre event, but it produced 2 large avalanche cycles at Whitewater anyway, up to size 2.5. 2.5's a large avalanche could bury a group of 2, 3, 4 plus people. So that was tracked, and it got snowed over, and other layers became more of a player than that one. But that one we watched for a significant amount of time before we determined that it had done its thing. Next was January 13th. We had a rain event to 2,300 meters. And so rain event in January, that high. For reference, Weimer Peak at Whitewater, peak above Whitewater there. If you've been, you know it. But it rained basically to the top of that is what we suspect. It was the freezing levels went way up, and we got this crust. After it cooled, it froze, and it formed this significant crust. Then the January 14th to the 19th was generally clear, light winds, maybe a little bit of precip, and we had 2 to 3 surface hoar layers that we'd have a clear spell, we'd form a little surface hoar, and then would snow on top, and then clear period, another surface hoar layer, it would snow on top. And so we had these layers, and they were big stellars, so these big snowflakes that kind of trickle down between the surface hoar and kind of keep it standing up. And then after that, which was buried on the 25th, we had a significantly big surface hoar layer that formed, and that layer became a real significant problem. We had big avalanche cycles, probably 2 avalanche cycles at Whitewater that were failing on that surface hoar layer, up to size 2.5. Weimer Bowl, we had significant slides coming down there that were failing on that layer. We had significant storm slab that formed above it, and it was running. That layer, as I said earlier, we're gaining confidence in it now. We haven't seen an avalanche on that layer now for I think the 3rd of February is what we looked up the other day. Was the last time we saw an avalanche on that layer. But so now that layer is like a persistent slab or a deep persistent slab, if we're using that terminology. And we're not eliminating it as a concern, and neither should you. Like if you're in our region and you hear about that layer, the chance of you triggering an avalanche on it is low. So we're moving into a low probability, high consequence situation with that layer. And so I've gained a lot of confidence, and our team at Whitewater has gained a lot of confidence in it. However, we're still, we're really paying attention to it. We've had the odd test result when we go dig a snow profile, compression test, extended column tests that still say that there's a chance we might trigger it. So we're on the fence. I think at some point here in the next week, we're hoping to remove it as one of our problems, but right now it's a layer that we're still concerned with. And so January 31st on, you can see significant freezing rain capped. So that thin crust again I was talking about on January 31st capped the entire snow surface. It went at least as high as 2,200 meters, maybe higher. But what happens with those freezing rain crusts is they start to, they prevent the wind from transporting any snow. And when the wind's not transporting snow, not only do these things ruin the skiing, what they do is they make it harder for snow to blow into a slab. And they also add a little bit of cohesion to the upper snowpack because they hold it together. They don't like to break and propagate and crack very well. Quick sip. So, and then February 7th, finally, we had a bit of for the first time this year, we had a Arctic outbreak. And we were generally a pretty mild winter. You know, all things considered, we had some cooler temperatures up at Whitewater in the minus 10 degree range, but this was the first Arctic outbreak where we were seeing temperatures in the minus 20 degree range. And the skiing stayed great. What happens with cold temperatures like that is it facets the upper snowpack, so it makes it super unconsolidated, super blower. I think there are people out there that, you know, that stomach the cold that had some pretty remarkable days because it was sunny, it was clear, and the snow was really, really good. And then unfortunately on February 13th and 14th, you know, the wind was not our Valentine. And we had a massive wind event at Whitewater, in Roslyn Range, all across, you know, the southern part of our region. I think even into the north, like the wind didn't escape. And they were outflow winds, which they were reverse loading. So generally our prevailing winds come from the southwest, and these winds switched and came from the east. When that happens, it nukes our start zones. It strips all the snow away, deposits the snow on the opposite side of the ridge that people are used to. And I think we had hundreds of trees blow over, and it destroyed the skiing in a lot of different places. Formed a pencil wind slab that was, you know, up to, you know, like 40, 50 centimeters thick. So this, it blew everything firm, blew tons of snow away, and it created a problem that was for a lot of people, it created a lot of tragedy. At the coast, there were 2 fatalities after this wind event because it was transporting snow into places that people were super unfamiliar with there being an avalanche problem. And people were triggering large wind slabs. And yeah, like I say, it was very sad at the coast. And I know down in the States, Morgan was saying, I think it was probably tied into the same event. You know, like there's that wind event was, it was gnarly, and it didn't do good things. So currently, we have around, since that time, we have around 40 centimeters of snow, 30 to 40 centimeters of snow that's totaled up, that's sitting on top of that wind slab. In general, that snow has been pretty unconsolidated. The last, like 3-4 days ago, I think there were people that were having some of the best skiing that we've had all season. It was, just sitting on top of the wind slab. The wind slab was supportive, but with that snow on top of it, people were just really enjoying themselves, and I was one of them for some of that time. But it was, so we have that 40 centimeters, and so our top meter now it turned into a pretty complex upper snowpack. And when I say complex, it just means that we have a lot of different layers that we're working through. We have surface hoar layers, we have wind slabs, old wind slabs, we have melt freeze crusts, we have on solar aspects, we have some melt freeze crusts, and we have some freezing rain crusts. But that complexity seems like it's actually been somewhat of a good thing. And generally that it can be bad. In this case, it's been good. There's just so much going on that it's almost holding everything together. And it seems like, that wind blew a lot of those layers away. So it's really holding things together quite well. Our whole snowpack actually, but the upper meter is really reluctant to have any sort of deeper instabilities or triggers there. So things are bonding well, and but I'll say again, generally well consolidated with layers mostly unreactive to triggers. You can never speak in certainty in the avalanche world. There's absolutely no way to say that you won't trigger an avalanche. There could still be thin spots where an avalanche hasn't been triggered on that January 25th surface hoar layer I was talking about, where a skier or rider could come in, find a thin spot where that layer is closer to the surface and trigger it. Is it unlikely? Yes. Low probability, high consequence. High consequence because if you do trigger one of those deeper layers, if you do trigger a big, fat wind slab somewhere, it's all of a sudden it's 50, 60 a meter deep, and you've got yourself a serious avalanche that can be quite destructive. So warming temps, strong west-southwest winds. This was just yesterday. The last 2 days we've had a lot more wind on that surface, kind of formed another wind slab on top. But this slab is 15-30 centimeters thick. It's sitting on some unconsolidated snow, but it's been super stubborn. And it really didn't produce an avalanche, natural avalanche cycle, which is what we were expecting. It was stubborn to skier-triggered avalanches. We were out there doing ski cutting, trying to initiate the avalanches to make it safer. It was super resistant to our ski cutting. And so it seems like this recent wind slab and our deeper wind slab are holding together nicely. The top pack is really, it's quite consolidated and looking quite good. But like those layers and any deeper instabilities, we have another system coming in here on Thursday. So Thursday night into Friday. So maybe with a little bit more load, it might change. So you get more snow, it consolidates, creates maybe a little bit denser slab, and we'll see what an increased load does, because that can trigger a natural avalanche cycle, can make it easier for a skier or a rider to initiate an avalanche on a slope. So something to pay attention to, but as of right now, our hazard has decreased to the point at Whitewater today where we called it moderate, low. Moderate in the alpine, moderate at tree line, and low below tree line. So that's where our snowpack is now, which is looking, you know, like realistically end of February, I'll take it. It's looking quite good. There's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of things going on, but right now, these wind events, it doesn't seem like it's really created a problem. The weakness is holding itself together, and it's doing quite well. So as I've been talking, hang on, I'm going to have another sip from my voice. You can see I'm talking a lot about Whitewater. And why am I talking about Whitewater? It's because it's what I'm familiar with. I work at Whitewater. That's the snowpack I follow. But because I'm familiar with that, doesn't mean that if I go to the Roslyn Range, if I go up north to Kootenay Glacier, if I go to Revelstoke, or if I go, you know, even over to the Purcells, that snowpack is the same. So when I started thinking about what I wanted to do with this presentation, I was really, you know, interested in letting you guys know about spatial distribution and the variability that happens, and strategies to mitigate your hazard when you're moving from different area to different area. And so things are not the same everywhere. Even though generally there can be a trend, we get the similar weather patterns. Sometimes things are the same, but lots of times they're not, and there's ways to make you safer as you're moving in between different areas, and that's what I'm going to try and focus on here now to let you guys know. So first thing I want to talk about, because we're talking about being in the backcountry, is that when you're in the backcountry, you're in the backcountry. You know, I hear a lot of terms, and I'm guilty of it as well. I'm not gonna say I've never used these terms, but you hear a lot about slack country. You hear a lot about side country. There's no such thing as slack country. When you leave out of bounds terrain, leave a ski area boundary, leave somewhere where people are controlling a snowpack to keep you safe, you are in the backcountry. And the backcountry, whether you're in Mount Waddington in the coastal range, you know, where you're 200 kilometers away from anybody else, or whether you walk up Upper Powder Keg at Whitewater and go ski Prospector, you are in the backcountry. And I think that's something that people really need to understand. And a lot of times, like the side country, people are like, well, you know, I can see the resort. There's going to be help. Like if something happens that, you know, we call the cavalry and we'll come get you. And lots of times we make that effort and we do our best, and we've done it many times, but it's not a guarantee and it can't happen every time. And that snowpack is treated, even though it can see more traffic, but you are still in the backcountry. So please, like as you're starting your ski touring career, if you've been in it for a long time, understand that as soon as you leave a controlled environment, you are in the backcountry, and you need to have all the precautions you take, whether you are 60 kilometers away or whether you are, you know, 5 meters on the other side of a rope, because it behaves the same way. Now, I mentioned spatial variability. So spatial variability, so this is a definition: when a quantity that is measured or different in spatial location exhibits values that differ across locations. So there's your technical explanation. But this relates to the snowpack with weak layers and slab properties that I was talking about earlier. So I spent some time talking about this surface hoar layer that was from the 25th of January. But because Whitewater has this layer from the 25th, does it mean that if I go ski touring at Kootenay Glacier that they have it? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they call it a different date. There are other places that we're calling it the 15th surface hoar. So you need to understand that because you see it. You might see it on Avalanche Canada's hazard rating. It may or may not exist. Wind does different things. Weather does different things in really in close proximity or in over vast differences. So variability occurs on a slope. It occurs on aspects and elevation differences. It occurs in drainages, over ranges, over entire regions. You can have different things that happen, like I say, 5 meters away from where you are. There could be a problem that exists that doesn't exist there. And it's critical to understand these differences and similarities in the snowpack where you're going to be skiing or riding. So variability occurs across both micro-terrain features and vast areas. And this is a study I found super interesting. I remember it from a lot of my Avalanche, course I took a number of years ago, and so I dug it up. And it pertains to a roosh block test, which isn't done super often, but a roosh block test is a test where a skier, you want to see the impact a skier has on a slope. This is the scoring level. So if you're cutting a roosh block, which is quite a big block for the skier to stand on, as you're cutting it, if the block fails on that weak layer, it's a 1, and it goes all the way to a 5, where the skier or rider is standing on the block and jumps up and down and gets it to fail that way, or doesn't get it to fail, and then you have a no result. So and what I found really interesting with this is if we look at this slide, this was Cam Campbell and Bruce Jameson. Bruce Jameson is like, it's the godfather of snow science out of the University of Calgary. He's quite remarkable, and credit to him and Cam Campbell for this study, but it showed some really interesting things. So you look at this slide and you can see 6s where nothing happened, 5, a 4, and then you had failures of 2. So as soon as the person stepped on the block. The size of that is probably, I think it's 25 meters across that they did all these roosh block tests in, or 50 meters across. So we're talking about a single slope where they were looking for weakness, and you look in places where there's like a 5 and a 3, or a 5, a 6, and a 2 that are literally 5 to 10 meters apart. So in one place where you get a significant failure on the slope, and then and you walk 5 meters away, and it takes so much more to actually trigger that layer. So you're looking at one slope that it's wildly different. So just understand, because if you dig a profile, if you do a test, just because you're seeing a weakness or you're not seeing a weakness in that one area doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in that area. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, 20 meters over. Like, it could still be there, and that should always be in the back of your mind. All right, next we go. So I wanted to give you the best real-world example I could of this. On the January 7th this year, we did a heli control mission up at Whitewater, and we piggybacked with Storm Mountain, and we flew over to a different area. So this was a 12.5 kilogram bag of AMFO, which is an explosive that we use. And I'm going to play this video. So hopefully this all goes well, but I'll keep talking. So this is a slope we call Goat Slide above Whitewater. It scares me. People can easily traverse underneath it. We don't often control out of our area, but this slope in particular, and sometimes some other ones, if we're concerned about people, using that area or it running inbounds, then we will control it, which is why we wanted to test this with AMFO. So as we watch this, we'll see you get detonation, and really you get, it's hard to see, you get a very small avalanche. Size 1.5, not really even big enough to bury a person. Loose snow, didn't even trigger a slide. So we were concerned about deeper layers below, about the December 8th and December 13th surface hoar and crust layers I was talking about, as well as a November crust layer we were hoping to make move so that slope wouldn't slide naturally. So this southwest aspect, 2,100 meters and a loose dry size 1.5, a pretty minimal avalanche. Okay. Oh. Hang on here. There we go. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, so 17.5 kilometers away. After we threw those bags, we went and continued on to the mission at hand. Storm Mountain controls for the railway, which sits above, overlooking the east shore of Kootenay Lake on a mountain called Mount Drury. These paths are huge, like 4,000 to 5,000 feet, run from the top of this mountain all the way down to the lake. And I'm going to use this number for a few times here, but this is just over 17 kilometers away from where we just threw that shot. 1 hour after we threw the bag on Goat Slide, we went to Mount Drury. It's a southeast aspect, so the aspect is slightly different, but still a south, where this slide in particular occurred. 2,100 meters elevation, so exactly the same size of explosive. And this avalanche, let's watch what happens here. And you want to talk about spatial variability. So when we were controlling this, it was quite shocking, actually. We weren't expecting to see the size of the avalanches we are seeing. But you watch this. This avalanche was 3.5 or a size 4. Let's call it a size 4. Size 4 is massive. And watch the thing run, watch the powder cloud, and it was phenomenal. The size of the avalanche. We threw, I believe it was 15 bags, and almost every single one produced size 2.5 to size 3 plus 3.5 avalanches. So there triggered other slides in there that were, it was remarkable. And I'll move to the next picture, or the next this thing. There we go. So here's another video. This is when we flew the debris and the crowns after. There were crowns in there that were pushing 3 meters, and it failed basically to ground. So there we go. Similar aspect, similar elevation. One produced loose, dry, size 1.5. Others produced size 3.5 to 4 monster slab avalanches failing to ground. So that's 17 kilometers distance. Now, so what can we do in these circumstances to try understand where you're going skiing or riding or snowmobiling, and what's 17 kilometers away versus here, okay? Here's my technology failing. Okay. So within 30 kilometers of Nelson, put a pin, draw a 30 kilometer radius. We have 3 different forecast regions. We have Kootenay boundary, we have South Columbia, and we have the Purcells. All can be incredibly different in a 30-kilometer radius. The Kootenay boundary region itself is over 200 kilometers wide. It goes all the way from Kootenay Lake to Kelowna. And, hang on. Thank you. They're vast regions. So, and there's, you get over towards the boundary. I mean, there's different climatic regions. The boundary's a lot warmer. You go over to the Purcells, it behaves sometimes a lot more like the Rockies. It's drier, it can be a little bit colder, mountains can be higher, and you get different micro effects. So these are things that we need to pay attention to. And if you look, I mean, we all live here, right? And or a lot of us do, or whether you live in Golden, you're experiencing the same thing. If you live in Revelstoke, you can be experiencing the same thing as well. So nobody's really immune to this phenomenon. So I bought a snowmobile this year. This is what I'm doing with it. If you look at my buddy's face there, you can see he's far less than stoked to be digging me out again. But I'm no different. I think, like after, 20 plus years here in the industry, I finally decided to get one of these things, which are super fun. But I'm really learning some valuable things. And I'm not alone here. I mean, out of all of you watching out there, I think that a lot of you are in my position. It's like COVID came. Nobody was sure what was going to happen. And it's one of the big reasons that I actually decided to buy this snowmobile. I'm like, well, at least I can get out into the mountains. I can go different places. I can go skiing, like maybe I can get my kids out there and tow them up places. But I'm seeing more sleds than I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like, well, am I seeing snowmobiles now because I just bought one? You know how you buy something and you're like, oh, now I'm seeing them? But I don't think that's the case. I think that, the sales of these things went through the roof and it was getting harder and harder to find them. So, but on that note, this was my first day, and I'm a rookie rider, admittedly. We covered over 60 kilometers in one day. And it was everything I could do to basically hang on to the thing as I was riding it because I was unsure. And then we were in an area where we're riding and all of a sudden I'd turn and I'd look up and I'd think, wow, we just crossed like 4 avalanche paths capable of producing a size 3 plus avalanche. And I'm just trying to hang on to my machine. And that's coming from somebody who's quite experienced in this industry. So it happens very, very fast. We can cover ground so quickly. And not only a snowmobile, you can get in your car, you can drive, get up early in the morning, you can be in Revelstoke and ski touring there, like in 3 or 4 hours. It happens and people do it. You can get in, you can drive north, you can go to Meadow Creek, you can get on your snowmobile and cover ground. And then look at what happened in 17 and a half kilometers. What do you think happens in 200 kilometers, in 250 kilometers? There can be a whole bunch of different changes there. We're seeing a significant increase in search and rescue calls. We're seeing a significant increase in people getting into trouble. And I think a lot of that has to do with a massive increase in traffic out there as well, and which is it's a great thing that people want to go enjoy the mountains and want to go ski touring. But what do we do to keep ourselves safe? Okay. So the first thing, and I'll preach this over and over again. Any avalanche educator, anybody in the avalanche field will say the same thing: educate yourself. Training is critical. There are numerous places to take an avalanche course. And even you take a course, it doesn't matter. What ends up happening is we all start speaking the same language, and that is critical. So I'm talking here tonight. I'm talking about slab property. I'm talking about sizes of avalanches. I'm talking about problems in the snowpack. You take a course, you start to understand these things, and when you understand these things, it gets far easier for you to understand what it is you need to do, the steps you need to do to keep yourself safe, okay? So please, if you haven't done already, if it's been 15 years, you're just getting back into ski touring, take another course, educate yourself. Okay, but I'm going to go down a list here of things you can do. One of the greatest things you can do is hire a guide. And I know a lot of people think, well, you know, I've invested a lot of money, I bought a snowmobile, or I'm going here, you know, I bought my ski touring equipment, you know, like I don't want to pay the money, but I wanted to go ski the backcountry out of Revelstoke. You know, guides they're professionals at what they do. They're an incredibly valuable resource. And a guide isn't going to take you out and not say anything and just march you around and, you know, tell you ski here. You know, maybe the odd one will, but they tend not to stay in business very long. You know, guides are passionate, interesting people that got into this field because they love it. You know, you don't get into this industry right away because you think you're going to make millions of dollars. I'll promise you that much. But you love to be in the mountains. So if you just once, you want to go see a different area, you hire somebody great. Kootenay Backcountry Guides offers all kinds of things. Here's the information. And you say, hey, this is what I want to do. But as you're touring around and you're walking behind Judson, watch what he does. They like to answer questions. We love to talk about snow. What are you doing? What are you thinking here? Why are we going to go skiing there? They'll answer those questions. They want to keep you safe, you know? Even though you're paying them to take you out, keep you safe, have a great day, it's an excellent option for you. If you're going to go to a different area, don't look past it, okay? They're really wonderful. So, and the Kootenay Backcountry Guides has amazing free resources on their website. Something you can check out. Judd does these awesome videos every single week. You can go to their website, click on, there's all kinds of awesome things for you to learn, and the knowledge there is amazing. So there you go. It's all free gear reviews, snowpack updates, and free information and learning, which we can all benefit from. Next thing you do, we find a mentor. It's crazy to me. The industry's really shifted in a way. Like when I started in this, 25 plus years ago, finding somebody who knew that you could invest some time into, spend some time in the mountains, I think was so valuable, and you could learn so much. And I think now the advent of the internet, social media, people look online. I don't think people value it as much as they should, but mentorship is critical. So if you have a friend that's more experienced, if you have a friend that's toured in that area, that's familiar with the area, see if you can go for a tour with them. Call them up, ask them some questions. You were out there touring the other day. What did you see? Am I, what should I be looking for? But don't underestimate the value of mentorship. That's for sure. It's super important. Talk to an industry professional. We're at Whitewater. People are going touring. Come knock on our door. Ask somebody, hey, I'm thinking about going to White Queen. Can I talk to a forecaster? You go to Red Mountain. I'm sure you could talk to a forecaster there. You go to Revelstoke. You could talk to a forecaster there. Ski resorts are excellent like that. And we make ourselves available because we want to keep people safe. We want to educate people. So please come talk to me. Come talk to anybody on our team, and we'll happily give you the most up-to-date current information we have. The other thing is we're quite familiar with other areas as well. So you could say, hey, I'm touring here today. Tomorrow I was thinking about going up and skiing up towards Old Glory in Rossland. What do you know? Do you know anything about that? Maybe we do. There's a chance we don't, but oftentimes we will know something about the snowpack in other regions because we follow it via different sharing information sharing platforms. Thanks, Morgan. So talk to an industry professional. We're available. Dry throat. Okay, be familiar with the Avalanche Canada forecast. This is today's forecast. Considerable, moderate, moderate. Again tomorrow, and then dropping to moderate, moderate, low. So I think a lot of people are somewhat familiar with Avalanche Canada. They go to the platform, and then they look at this and they go, okay, well that's what the forecast is, and then they're on their way. But I think and I'm going to sing the praises here of Avalanche Canada. They have remarkable resources on there, and just in the forecast in general. So this is the first page, very important. But you click over on the banner and you get our current slab problems. Where are slab problems located, and what sizes of avalanches are possible. This information takes your hazard and it takes it to a whole other level. So you understand where you could be traveling and what kind of avalanche problems you could be encountering on your trip. Okay, so look through this. We talked about wind slabs. Okay, that's one of our current problems. That's what I talked about. We talked about persistent slabs. Okay, that's one of the problems I talked about. Now you have a little bit more information. When you go there, you understand that terminology, which is critical for you keeping yourself safe as far as where those slab problems are located and what you can do there. Now you take it to the next level when you're reading a forecast, and you get a whole bunch. You get our avalanche summary. Have people been triggering avalanches? Remember, the best data we have is avalanche activity. If people are seeing avalanches, well, then you know they're happening. So and that information is presented to you. We have how they're triggered. And we have a weather forecast, so you can know what to expect. So when you're reading a forecast, please go through the layers of the forecast. It only takes a few minutes, and that information is really, really good. It's far superior than just looking at what your hazard is and moving on. There's excellent information there. What is the confidence? That's something we speak in forecaster land, and confidence is low, it's moderate, or it's high confidence. You want to see high confidence? If you're seeing low confidence, something in the back of your brain should be saying, okay, they're not super confident on the information they're telling me, because sometimes it's a dynamic environment we don't know. Then pay attention to what your confidence rating is. Learn how to create and read a min report, okay? On Avalanche Canada, as professionals, we use a platform called the Information Exchange. We call it the InfoX for short. Different operations across our region report avalanches they've seen, what their hazard is, a snowpack summary, their weather. So we get all kinds of really good information. However, this year with COVID, there are a number of operations that aren't running, and our data is significantly less than it has been in previous years. But Avalanche Canada has this MIN report. MIN stands for Mountain Information Network. So you can click on, if you open it, there's a little blue button on the bottom. It says create a MIN report. It walks you through it. It's super simple. If you've seen an avalanche, if you've triggered an avalanche, if you've dug a profile, if you've traveled through the mountains and there's information worth sharing, you can upload photos. But as professionals, we're using this information from all of you out there on a regular basis because we want as much data as we can to fill in the blanks for things that we don't know. But I'm encouraging all of you. And remember, there's no shame if you triggered an avalanche, if you were caught in an avalanche. That is such vital data to keep all of us safer. So please Don't be ashamed. Post it online. It's okay. You know, it happens to the best of us. It's happened to me without question. It's happened to many people I know, but please, you know, keep these min reports coming. You know, pay attention. I've got strength and weight of information there, which pertains to, you know, you have to have a bit of a discerning eye, you know, like as far as, like if somebody reports being caught in a size 2 avalanche, there's a lot of strength to that observation, because you know that the person triggered an avalanche, they were okay, there was an injury, something happened. But, you know, like if, just use your sense, you know, if somebody who's out there, if it looks like a little questionable, like the information can be a little bit interesting depending on the person's experience level. Still good information, please put it out there, but, you know, like pay attention to significant events, pay attention to significant weather events, things like that on the min report. And then understand your own area. We all spend time in generally one specific area. I can't think of too many people that are, you know, like touring, you know, like have passes at 3 different resorts and touring in 4 different areas. You know, like I understand Whitewater, that's where I work, that's where I ski the majority of the time. I do ski different places, but if you understand your own area, you can translate what you're seeing there when you travel someplace else far easier. When you see, you can have that conversation. Are you guys seeing the January 25th layer here? Are you seeing the wind slab problem? Did you get the winds? But the more you understand what's happening in your own snowpack, where you're skiing or riding typically, the better off you are when you look at a forecast on Avalanche Canada, when you talk to somebody else on what's happening in these other regions. So I can't stress this enough. It's what we do as forecasters. We work in, or guides, we work in a specific place, but we understand our area, and it helps us immensely when we travel other places. You can do the same thing because you have these tools, okay? Understand terrain tools and weather forecasting products available to you. The internet's an amazing thing. I have FatMap on here. I have Google Earth. I have Avalanche Canada. Again, weather forecasting tools, terrain tools. This is windy.com. These are awesome forecasting, weather forecasting models. These terrain maps like FatMap has been remarkable. Before you go to an area, you know what it looks like. You know where the avalanche terrain, and this thing has layers where you can check aspect, you can check elevation, you can check steepness. So you know your probability is of triggering an avalanche when you compare it to the Avalanche Canada forecast. So familiarize yourself with these tools, use them. It doesn't take long. I'm technologically not all that with it, and I can use this stuff, so can you. So takeaways. Avalanches, snowpack conditions obviously can vary over vast areas or micro terrain features. So that's something pay attention to when you're out there, okay? Hiring a professional guide or traveling with an experienced mentor are really great ways to get yourself a little bit more education, keep yourself safe. Understand your own area to compare it to other regions that you may be traveling to. Be as familiar as you can with Avalanche Canada website and its multitude of amazing resources. It's an awesome website. Spend some time on there and check it out. If you're interested in snow, it's a really cool thing. And use other online resources to understand your terrain and your weather and how that all works. And that, stay safe, have fun, and shred some pow. And went a little longer than I was hoping, but I hope you guys got a lot of good information out of it. And like I say, up at Whitewater, knock on the door, come talk to us, and I'm happy to fill you in with a bunch more information. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks Morgan again, State of the Snowpack team, and we'll see you in the mountains.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wishy. Again, another awesome presentation. Super grateful. Would like to again just give a huge shout out to Ryan Flett, our filmer extraordinaire, our newest member of our team, Shane Hainsworth, I hope I'm saying that right, is the reason why this looks so banger on your computer right now. Because he's an awesome live streamer, which I didn't even know was a real job, but it's sure as heck making my job easier. So I'm super grateful that he has joined on. I'd like to give a big shout out to Kath, to Kootenay backcountry guides, and to Judson. I could not do this without you guys. And to Wishy and Judson for being my speakers. So, so grateful. And please share this. Thank you for tuning in live. Please tune into the next one. It's in 2 weeks on March 9th with John Buffrey, the Snow Wizard of Baldface. So you don't want to miss that for sure. And yeah, have a great night, everybody. Stay safe. See you out there.